The guards thought the captured American woman was only a lost nurse until they opened her coat and found a prison tag that did not belong to her, a map stitched into the lining, and a name written in blood on the back of a ration card. By nightfall, the camp commandant ordered every gate sealed because she had not been brought there by mistake, and someone inside the wire was waiting for her. The truck entered the German prison compound before sunrise, carrying 3 captured American airmen, 2 French workers, and 1 woman with mud on her face and a torn medical bag hanging from her shoulder. The guards ordered the men down first, then stopped when she stepped from the truck wearing a faded American field jacket under a civilian coat. A sergeant took her papers and read the name aloud, but the card was wet, the ink had run, and the photograph did not fully match her face. He called for the camp clerk, who brought a lantern closer and noticed that her sleeve carried the remains of a Red Cross patch that had been ripped away during capture. The commandant arrived from the office hut and immediately separated her from the other prisoners. He asked why an American woman was moving near a railway bridge at night, why she carried a medical bag with no instruments inside, and why one of the captured airmen looked at her as if he already knew her. The woman did not answer the questions directly. She opened the medical bag, removed 2 bandages, and placed them on the ground as if proving she had no weapon. When the sergeant searched deeper, he found a German prison tag hidden beneath the lining, stamped with a number from that same camp. That number changed the yard. The clerk checked his register and found that the tag belonged to a prisoner who had died 3 weeks earlier after being moved from the punishment block. The commandant ordered the tag covered with his glove, then told the sergeant to take the woman to the old laundry room and keep her away from the airmen. The first conflict began when the senior American airman refused to enter the barrack until the woman was registered under proper prisoner rules. The guards pushed him forward, but he kept repeating that she was American personnel and could not disappear into a side room without witness or record. The commandant answered by striking the airman's name from the arrival list until he complied. That move frightened the clerk more than the prisoners, because an unregistered captive created a hole that could later become evidence. He wrote the woman's false name in pencil, then slipped the page under another folder before the commandant saw it. Inside the laundry room, the woman was searched by a German nurse attached to the camp infirmary. The nurse found the stitched lining inside the coat and cut it open carefully. A small map fell onto the table, marked with a coal shed, a drainage ditch, and a cross beside the punishment block. The nurse tried to call the commandant, but the woman reached for the map first and pressed her hand over the cross. The nurse pulled it away and saw a second mark beneath it, a tiny American flag drawn beside a prisoner number. She folded the map without speaking and placed it inside her apron instead of handing it to the guard. At evening roll call, the commandant announced that the woman would be questioned as a suspected spy, not held as a medical worker. The American airmen watched from the barrack line as she was taken past the punishment block, and one prisoner near the fence whispered that the dead man's tag had returned to the camp for a reason. The next morning, the commandant ordered the woman brought into the records office, where the clerk had arranged the captured tag, the damaged identity card, and the empty medical bag on a table. He wanted a confession written before district security arrived, because a clean confession would turn missing records into a simple spy case. The woman was made to stand while the clerk typed her answers. She gave her name as Margaret Hale, said she had crossed the lines while looking for wounded men, and refused to explain the prison tag. Each refusal made the commandant more careful, because the tag proved she knew something that had started inside his camp. A guard entered with the 3 American airmen and lined them against the wall. The commandant pointed to Margaret and asked whether they had seen her before capture. 2 denied it immediately, but the senior airman hesitated when he saw the torn coat lining on the table. That hesitation became the first escalation. The commandant ordered the airmen searched, and guards found a narrow strip of cloth sewn into his trouser seam. It carried the same prisoner number as the dead man's tag, along with one word written in pencil: witness. The commandant locked the airman in the storage cellar and moved Margaret to the infirmary corridor under guard. He told the camp doctor she was not to receive visitors, not to receive mail, and not to be listed among the sick. The doctor objected because her wrist was swollen from the capture rope, but the order remained. During the noon meal, the German nurse brought Margaret a bowl of soup and slid the folded map beneath the bread. Margaret opened it under the table and saw that the nurse had added a new mark near the infirmary wall. It showed a drain cover that led outside the locked corridor. Instead of using it immediately, Margaret tore a small corner from the map and hid it inside the bandage around her wrist. She gave the rest back to the nurse, because escape alone would leave the airmen in the cellar and the dead prisoner's number buried again. That afternoon, district security arrived with a black car and 2 plainclothes officers. They did not inspect the barracks or the yard. They went directly to the commandant's office, read the tag number, and asked why a prisoner reported dead was now connected to an American woman captured outside the wire. The commandant blamed the clerk, claiming the number had been copied incorrectly weeks earlier. The clerk opened his mouth to defend himself, but one plainclothes officer placed a pistol on the desk and told him that clerical mistakes had already caused enough trouble in other camps. By dusk, the camp entered a stricter lock-in. The airmen were separated, the nurse was ordered away from Margaret, and the doctor was told to prepare a medical note saying the woman was fit for immediate transfer. The commandant thought distance would solve the problem, but the district officers had brought something worse than orders. Before leaving the office, one officer opened a sealed envelope and showed the commandant a photograph taken near the bombed railway bridge. It showed Margaret kneeling beside a wounded prisoner in striped camp clothing, alive after the date he had supposedly died. The commandant closed the curtains because the spy case had become a murder record. The transfer order came before dawn, and Margaret was marched through the inner yard with her coat removed, her medical bag sealed, and 2 armed guards walking close behind her. The official paper said she was being moved for security questioning, but the black car waiting near the gate carried no medical escort and no prisoner log. The camp doctor stepped into the road and blocked the car with a stretcher. He claimed Margaret had a rising infection in her wrist and could not be transferred without examination. The district officer ordered him aside, but the doctor unwrapped the bandage and exposed the map corner hidden beneath it. The officer seized the paper before Margaret could close her hand. He saw only a drain mark and a section of wall, yet the commandant saw enough to understand that someone inside the camp had helped her. He ordered every infirmary worker detained and every drain cover searched before the car could leave. This created the major consequence. The search uncovered a loose brick behind the infirmary stove, and inside it guards found 3 folded notes written by prisoners who had vanished from the punishment block. Each note named a date, a guard detail, and a night transfer that never appeared in the camp register. The district officers stopped the car and took control of the office. They forced the commandant to open the punishment block ledger, but several pages had been cut out cleanly. The clerk was brought in shaking, and he admitted that the commandant had ordered those pages removed after an air raid destroyed the railway records nearby. The punishment spread through the camp quickly. All parcels were suspended, the yard was closed, and the American airman in the cellar was dragged out for questioning about the cloth-marked witness. He told them the dead prisoner had passed the tag through a drainage grate before being taken away at night. Margaret was brought face to face with him in the office, not as a mercy, but as a trap. The commandant expected their reactions to prove a planned intelligence mission. Instead, the airman pointed at the tag and said the dead prisoner had begged anyone outside the block to get the number to American command. The district officer ordered the coal cellar opened fully and found scratches on the wall beside the airman's holding spot. The scratches matched numbers from the hidden notes, as if prisoners had used the cellar wall as a backup register when the official book stopped telling the truth. A guard then tried to move the hidden notes into the stove while the officers argued. The German nurse saw him through the office window and threw a metal tray across the infirmary floor, drawing everyone into the corridor before the papers burned. The guard was caught with one note in his sleeve. The camp now faced a danger greater than a captured American woman. The missing prisoner records could bring inspectors, reprisals, and criminal charges against German staff. The commandant ordered the nurse arrested as a traitor, but the district officer stopped him because her testimony had become useful to higher authority. By night, Margaret was no longer being transferred. She was locked in a guarded infirmary room while the district officers copied the hidden notes and compared them with the cut ledger. The camp lights stayed on until morning, and prisoners in every barrack knew the punishment block had finally opened its mouth. The major reversal began when an Allied artillery strike hit the rail line beyond the village and cut the road used by district security. The black car could not leave, the telephone lines failed, and the officers who had come to remove Margaret were suddenly trapped inside the same camp they had planned to cleanse of evidence. During the confusion, the commandant tried to regain control. He ordered the guards loyal to him to move Margaret from the infirmary to the old coal shed, where no neutral inspector would look first. The German nurse saw the movement and ran to the prisoner kitchen, where the American airmen were carrying water under guard. The senior airman acted before the guards understood the warning. He overturned a boiling wash barrel near the kitchen door, sending steam across the yard and forcing the escort around the long side of the barracks. Margaret used those seconds to drop the prison tag into a drain beside the path. A Polish prisoner working on the drainage trench saw the tag fall and pushed it under a clump of mud with his boot. He did not run or signal. He simply kept digging until the escort passed, then lifted the tag with his shovel and carried it toward the chapel woodpile. The reversal became clear when a Red Cross inspection car arrived unexpectedly through the damaged road from the opposite direction. It had been scheduled for a neighboring labor camp, but the bridge strike forced it to seek the nearest military compound. The commandant could not refuse entry without drawing immediate suspicion. The district officers understood the danger before he did. They ordered the commandant to present all female detainees, all punishment records, and all medical entries for foreign prisoners. He had only minutes to explain a woman who had no proper file, a doctor under pressure, a nurse under suspicion, and a dead prisoner's tag now missing from his desk. Margaret was still in the coal shed when inspectors entered the yard. The nurse led the camp doctor to the shed by pretending to carry emergency supplies after the artillery shock. The doctor opened the door and placed Margaret on a stretcher, then rolled her directly into the inspection path, as if she had been under treatment the whole time. The Red Cross delegate stopped the stretcher and asked her nationality. Margaret answered American, gave her real name, and lifted her bandaged wrist to show the marks from capture. The commandant tried to interrupt, but the district officer silenced him because any open argument in front of inspectors would expose the hidden transfer. The Polish prisoner reached the chapel woodpile and passed the tag to the priest who served the camp laborers. The priest carried it to the inspection table inside a prayer book, then opened the book beside the copied notes and said one prisoner number had been recovered from the yard. The commandant lost the room at that moment. The tag, the hidden notes, the cut ledger, and Margaret's testimony now existed in front of outside witnesses. The woman he tried to erase had become the safest person in the compound because harming her would confirm every suspicion already written on the table. By evening, the Red Cross delegates ordered Margaret placed under protected medical status until her case could be forwarded through neutral channels. The commandant was forced to sign the entry himself, and every stroke of his pen turned the reversal into an official record he could no longer destroy. The final irreversible event began the next morning when the Red Cross delegates demanded to inspect the punishment block before leaving. The commandant claimed the building was empty and unsafe after the rail strike, but the American airmen told them that prisoners had heard tapping from behind the rear wall during the night. The delegates ordered the wall examined. Guards removed broken boards from a storage alcove and the camp doctor found a narrow crawl space behind stacked coal sacks. Inside were two weakened prisoners who had been hidden there during the inspection, both alive, both carrying numbers from the missing notes. Margaret recognized one of them from the railway bridge photograph. He was the man whose tag she had carried through the lines, thinner now, but alive enough to raise his hand when the delegate spoke his number. The room froze because the camp record said he had died weeks earlier. The commandant tried one final defense. He claimed the men had been isolated for disease control, but the doctor opened the punishment ledger and showed that their medical entries had been removed. The German nurse then produced the apron seam where she had hidden the copied map, proving the concealment had been planned around the infirmary route. The district officers moved against the commandant to protect themselves. They placed him under guard in his own office and ordered the clerk to bring every transport receipt, death notice, and transfer slip from the previous month. The clerk unlocked a lower cabinet and revealed a bundle of papers tied with wire. Those papers ended the camp's old order. They showed prisoners transferred at night, tags reassigned, and death dates changed after bodies had already been removed. Margaret's capture had not created the secret. It had carried the first proof back into the place where the secret began. The Red Cross delegates wrote a formal protest and sealed copies of the records in separate envelopes. One envelope went with them, one stayed with district authority, and one was placed under the doctor's custody until neutral transmission could be arranged. The commandant could still deny words, but he could not erase 3 sealed records moving in different directions. Margaret was placed in the same ambulance as the 2 hidden prisoners. The senior airman was allowed to help carry the stretcher, and before the doors closed, he handed her the small cloth-marked witness. She folded it around the dead man's tag and gave it to the delegate instead of keeping it. As the ambulance rolled through the gate, the prisoners in the yard did not cheer, because cheering would bring punishment and silence would carry farther. They stood in full view of the guards while the gate book was filled out line by line, including Margaret's real name, her nationality, the recovered prisoners, and the destination of the medical transfer. The irreversible act came when the Red Cross delegate refused to leave until the commandant's signature was placed beneath the corrected entries. The former commandant signed with 2 guards beside him, and the ink dried before the ambulance disappeared down the damaged road. From that point on, the camp's lie was no longer hidden inside German files, because the world outside had a matching copy. Months later, Margaret's name appeared on a protected prisoner exchange list beside the 2 men found behind the punishment block. When she was handed back through neutral lines, she carried no weapon, no map, and no false paper, only the copied number tag sealed in a small evidence pouch. The officer receiving her asked how one captured woman had opened an entire camp record. Margaret placed the pouch on his desk and said the dead man had already done it. She had only brought his number home. If this hidden World War II story shocked you, subscribe now, because the next secret we uncover is even darker.